Story 1.
I thought swiping right on Tinder was just harmless fun, a shot at love or something like it. That's until my last date nearly cost me my life. I live in a typical American suburb, the kind where Friday nights are spent at the local bar and everyone's into football. I matched with Emily, a girl who seemed perfect. We chatted for weeks, really hit it off. She suggested we meet at this secluded spot she knew, a little cabin in the woods. Sounded romantic, right? The drive there was long, took me way off the main road. The place was so isolated, no houses for miles. When I pulled up, it was just this old, run-down cabin, surrounded by dense forest. I texted her I'd arrived, but she said she was running late. The place gave me the creeps, but I brushed it off, thinking I was just being paranoid. As I waited, I started feeling uneasy. It was too quiet, except for the occasional rustling of leaves. Then I heard footsteps on the porch. I figured it was Emily, but when I turned around, no one was there. My heart started racing. I texted her again asking where she was, no reply. That's when I heard the back door creak open. I peeked inside, and it was pitch black. Something felt wrong. I wanted to bolt, but a part of me needed to know what was going on. I stepped inside, my phone's flashlight cutting through the darkness. The place was a mess, looked abandoned for years. Then, I heard a noise upstairs, like someone whispering. My pulse was pounding in my ears. I crept up the stairs, each step creaking under my weight. The whispering got louder, but I couldn't make out the words. At the top, I found a room. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and nothing. Just an empty room with old furniture. But the feeling of being watched was intense. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was Emily, texting, "Get out now." I didn't need to be told twice. I raced down the stairs, but as I reached the bottom, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It wasn't Emily. It was a man, tall and imposing, blocking the exit. I froze, my mind racing. He stepped towards me, and I knew I was in real trouble. I needed a way out, and fast. Just then, I heard a car outside. It was Emily, yelling for me to run. The guy turned towards the noise, and in that split second, I bolted past him out the door. Emily was in her car, engine running. I didn't stop to think, I just jumped in, and she floored it. We didn't stop driving until we hit the main road. She told me she got suspicious when I didn't answer her texts and came to check on me. Turning it out, her Tinder account had been hacked, and it wasn't her I was talking to all this time. Since that night, I've been laying low, avoiding dating apps, and staying close to familiar places. I still meet friends at our local bar, but I can't shake off the feeling of being watched. Every time a stranger walks in, my heart skips a beat. Emily and I kept in touch after that night. She was just as shaken up as I was. We've met a few times since, always in public, crowded places. We talk about what happened, trying to piece together the puzzle. But there are no answers, just a bunch of terrifying what-ifs. Sometimes late at night, I lie awake thinking about the cabin. I wonder if that guy is still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for his next victim. The police never found any evidence, no trace of him. It's like he vanished into thin air. The more I think about it, the more I realize how lucky I was. A few seconds slower, and I wouldn't be here telling this story. It's changed me, made me more cautious, more suspicious of strangers. Until recently, I didn't want to share this story with anyone else. But recent events have forced me to do so. The thing is, 3 days ago, a young man, he was only 22. Anyway, you get the picture. It happened in a small cabin in the woods. He was invited there by a girl on Tinder. He would never log into his account again. So I stick to my routine, keep to the places I know. But every time my phone dings with a notification, I can't help but wonder. Is it him? Is he still out there, watching, waiting? The mystery of the cabin, the man, and those haunting whispers in the dark. It remains unsolved, a chilling chapter in my life that I can never close. What would you do if you were me? Write in the comments. I'll be sure to read it, but I won't answer you. I'm afraid.
Story 2.
Swiping through Tinder was like a game to me. until one match turned my life into a real-life horror story. Living in a bustling city in the US, where dating apps are as common as coffee shops, I thought, what's the harm? That's when I matched with Mike. He seemed perfect, charming, good-looking, with a sense of humor. We chatted for days, and soon he suggested we meet up. I told my roommate, Jenna, about it. Be careful, she warned, but I just laughed it off. We decided to meet at this popular downtown cafe. It was crowded, which made me feel safe, but Mike never showed. I texted him, annoyed, but got no response. Figured it was just another ghosting. Later that night, back in our apartment, I heard a knock at the door. It was nearly midnight. Jenna was out of town and I wasn't expecting anyone. Hesitantly, I asked, "Who's there?" A voice replied, "It's Mike. Sorry about earlier. Can we talk?" I was surprised but curious. I opened the door and there he was smiling, but something in his eyes didn't sit right with me. I didn't invite him in, just talked through the slightly opened door. He apologized, saying his phone died and he lost track of time. His story seemed off, but I brushed it aside. He asked if he could come in for a minute, but alarm bells went off in my heed. I declined, saying it was late. His smile faded. "Maybe some other time," I said, closing the door. I heard him linger for a moment before walking away. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I messaged Mike, no response. By evening, his Tinder profile was gone. It felt weird, but I tried to forget about it. Then, things took a darker turn. I started noticing someone following me. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but it happened too often to be a coincidence. I'd see a figure lurking a few blocks behind me, always keeping a distance. I told Jenna about it when she got back. She was worried, suggested we report it to the police, but I had no proof, just a gut feeling and a disappearing Tinder match. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. But then, the following started getting more obvious. I'd see the same figure outside the cafe where I worked, just standing there, watching. I never got a good look at his face, always hooded or turned away. My nerves were shot. I jumped at every shadow, every unexpected sound. One night, I was closing up the cafe alone. The streets were deserted, the only sound the distant hum of traffic. As I locked up, I heard footsteps echoing behind me. I turned around and saw him, the same figure, but this time he was closer. I ran back inside, locked the door, and called the police. They came, checked the area, but found no one. They said it could just be a coincidence, maybe a homeless person. But I knew it wasn't. I felt targeted, hunted. Jenna stayed with me that night, trying to calm me down, but I barely slept. The next few days, I was on edge. I took different routes to work, constantly looked over my shoulder. Jenna stayed close, always checking in. But the stalking didn't stop. It got worse. Then came the night that changed everything. I was home alone. Jenna was working late. There was a power outage. The whole block plunged into darkness. I lit some candles, tried to not freak out. That's when I heard it, the sound of someone trying to open the front door. I froze, heart racing. The doorknob rattled, then stopped. I crept to the window, peered out. I could barely make out a figure on the porch. I grabbed my phone to call the police, but there was no signal. The power outage must have taken out the cell tower, too. I was trapped, alone, and in the dark. The figure started banging on the door, shouting, "Let me in." I recognized the voice. It was Mike. How did he find where I lived? I hid in the closet, trying to stay quiet. The banging continued. Then I heard glass shatter. He was inside. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. I heard him moving around the apartment, calling my name. It felt like a nightmare. I don't know how long I was in that closet, but eventually the noise stopped. I stayed hidden, too scared to move until I heard sirens. The police had arrived. Neighbors must have called them. I heard them searching the apartment, calling out to see if anyone was there. Eventually, they found me huddled in the closet, too terrified to speak. Mike was gone by the time they got there. They said a neighbor saw a man running away when the police cars pulled up. They took a statement, said they'd patrol the area, but I could tell they thought it was just a domestic dispute gone wrong. I couldn't stay in that apartment anymore. Jenna stayed with me as I packed a bag and we went to her parents' place in the suburbs. I didn't feel safe anywhere, but at least I wasn't alone. I never heard from Mike again. The police said they couldn't find anyone matching his description or name. It was like he vanished. I deleted Tinder, vowing never to use a dating app again. But the fear, the feeling of being watched, it stayed with me. I still look over my shoulder when I walk down the street. I jump at every unexpected sound. I can't shake the feeling that Mike is still out there, that one day he might find me again. Jenna says I should try to move on. But how can you move on from something like that? So that's my story. A Tinder date gone horribly wrong. A stalker that disappeared into the night. It's left me scared, paranoid, and wondering if I'll ever feel safe again. Some nights, I lie awake, thinking about what might have happened if the police hadn't shown up when they did. It's a mystery, an unsolved chapter in my life that still haunts me.
Story 3.
I met this girl on Tinder, you know the drill. Swipe right, a match, and then the chatting begins. Her name was Lisa, and she seemed cool. We hit it off right away, texting back and forth about all sorts of stuff. She had this quirky sense of humor that I really dug. After a week or so, she suggested we meet up. I was down for it, so we planned to grab coffee at this chill spot downtown. The day we were supposed to meet, I got there a bit early, grabbed a table, and waited. She was running late, which was no big deal at first, but then an hour passed, and she still wasn't there. I shot her a text asking if everything was cool. No reply. I figured maybe she ghosted me or something. It happens, right? So I left, kind of bummed out, but whatever. That night, things got weird. I got a text from Lisa, apologizing, saying her phone died and she really wanted to meet up. She asked if I could come to this other place she knew, kind of on the outskirts of town. It was late, but I thought, heck, why not? I drove out to this spot she mentioned, an old warehouse area that looked deserted. Gave me the creeps, but I figured maybe it was some kind of cool, underground hangout spot or something. I texted her when I got there. No response. I waited around for a bit, then heard something. It sounded like footsteps, but muffled, like someone trying to be quiet. I called out, asking if it was Lisa, but no answer. My heart was starting to race. This didn't feel right. Then I saw her, or at least I thought it was her. She was standing in the shadow of the warehouse, just out of the light. But something was off. She wasn't moving, just standing there, staring. I called out to her again, and that's when she moved into the light. It wasn't Lisa. I don't know who or what it was, but it wasn't human. Its eyes were too big, its smile too wide. I froze for a second, then turned and ran back to my car. I could hear it behind me, its footsteps way too fast. I got to my car, locked the doors, and floored it out of there. I didn't stop until I was back in the city with lights and people around. My heart was pounding like crazy and I couldn't stop shaking. I went home, locked all the doors, and tried to calm down. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every noise made me jump. I kept thinking about that thing at the warehouse, its eyes, its smile. It was burned into my mind. The next day, I tried to convince myself it was just some weirdo in a costume trying to scare me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I deleted Tinder, decided that was enough online dating for me. But it didn't end there. I started seeing that thing, whatever it was, everywhere. In the shadows, just out of the corner of my eye, always just a glimpse. Then it was gone. I told my friends about it, but they thought I was just stressed out or imagining things. It's been a few weeks now, and I still see it, that thing from the warehouse. I don't know what it wants or why it's following me. I'm scared all the time, always looking over my shoulder. I don't go out at night anymore. I stay in crowded places where there's light and people. I don't know what to do. It feels like I'm losing my mind. That thing, it's always there, lurking in the shadows, just out of sight. I can feel its eyes on me, watching, waiting. I can't escape it, no matter where I go. Every time I close my eyes, I see its twisted smile, those unnaturally large eyes. It's like it's haunting me, but I don't know why. Did it latch onto me that night at the warehouse? Is this some kind of sick game it's playing? My life has turned into a constant state of paranoia. I jump at every sound, every movement in my peripheral vision. My friends are worried. They keep suggesting I see someone about it, like a therapist. But I know this isn't something that can be talked away. This is real as anything I've ever known. I tried going back to the warehouse once, in the daylight, thinking maybe I could confront it, or at least prove to myself it was all in my head. But the place was completely empty, just an old abandoned building, no sign of anything out of the ordinary. Now, I'm sitting here, writing this, and I can feel it watching me from somewhere outside my window. I don't know what it is or what it wants, but I know I can't escape it. It's become a part of my life, a terrifying presence that I can't shake off. I keep thinking back to that night, wondering if I missed something, some clue as to what this thing is. But I come up empty every time. All I know is that it started with that Tinder match with Lisa, and now I'm trapped in this nightmare. So, if you're reading this, be careful who you meet online. You never know what might be lurking behind that profile. As for me, I don't know what comes next. I just know I can't keep living like this, always scared, always running. But I'm not sure there's a way out. This thing, it's always just a few steps behind me, waiting in the darkness.